tag you. I'll tag you. While we're waiting, let's see. Okay. There you are. There you are. Boom. Let me tag the last show. Boom. Okay, here they come. All right, let's see. Boom. Boom. All right. Oh, we got 10 people in the house. We're a bit suppressed, so if these shows resonate with you, would you please share to one page or a group? We don't normally do that, but we're getting some mild suppression here recently, which is fine. Which is fine. So today we have, I should put your name up here. Why don't we do that? Let's go here and go here. And let's see. So we have a local Kimberly. Is that right?
Yep.
Oop.
That's right.
Kimberly. Brighton.
Brighton. Yep.
Brighton.
O-N. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh. That's better. We'll add this. Put this over by you. Oh. We'll just put it here. Does that look weird? That's all right. Okay. So we have a special, well, this is our second show today with somebody in the studio, which we haven't been able to do much here in Sedona this last go-round. So this obviously is Kimberly Brighton, and we're going to find out everything about her. She's here in Village of Oak Creek, and she's into a lot of stuff. She says she's a Renaissance woman.
Yeah.
Or like some practitioners, she has a very varied toolbox, you might say.
Yeah, a broad toolbox. Yeah, for sure.
So, you know, I know because I've seen you out there since we kind of connected, so I know you're familiar with the show. Although I don't ask it as much as I used to, but the famous question here is, you know, did you have a wake-up experience, or have you always been this weird?
I did have a wake-up experience.
You did?
Yeah, my mother died when I was in 1997, right after my 10-year high school reunion, and didn't really grow up with my mother. And death for me just opened me up to a whole new way of seeing the world. And before she had died, I didn't really know how to pray. And I just remember, I knew she was dying, and I just remember asking God to please take her soul to the highest place in heaven if that's real. And since the moment that she passed, I was open to synchronicity. My world just changed. I expanded. My inner world became so rich and alive, and I thought I was going crazy.
In 1997?
Yeah.
Wow.
And, yeah, I thought I was going crazy. I didn't really know how to talk to anybody about what was happening. There wasn't the internet like we know it now. I just knew that everything had changed. And I felt like it was her. I really did feel like I was now communicating with the sun, the moon, the stars, God, the universe, whatever lane you travel in. For me, I didn't know even that there was a lane like this. And so I just was open to it. And I all of a sudden just was so drawn to astrology, tarot, even astronomy, really occult sort of stuff. And occult just means hidden.
Right.
You know, today it's kind of anyway, that's what happens when something gets commercialized.
Back in the day, though, I mean, like, because I started picking up that information, like, through books, because you didn't have the internet, like in the early 80s. And And if you went to a bookstore, you had to go to the occult section.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every now and then you'd go into one that say metaphysics, but most of the time you had to go to the occult section.
Yeah. And I have a German Nordic heritage, and I would come to find out that, oh, this is kind of my heritage, to really have a kind of a good grasp on this instantly. Not that I knew everything instantly. I just was able to learn it very quickly. And I, with my job, was moved out to Santa Monica and California shortly after she had passed.
Now,
And
where were you before that?
I was in Scottsdale.
Oh, okay. So you were from Arizona.
Well, I'm from Oregon.
Okay.
But, my 20s were kind of all over the place. My 30s would settle in Santa Monica area. And I knew very quickly that I wasn't cut out for corporate world in Santa Monica. It was kind of my first up level in the corporate world, and I knew I wasn't going to fare well. So I went to acting school for 2 years, studied Meisner, method acting, the craft, if you will, which is also quite occult in many ways,
Right.
creating a magical persona on stage. And I went to acting to quit acting. I went to acting school to quit acting.
Wow.
So I studied writing, producing, directing, and acting, and I ended up having a radio show called Overground Railroad. And it was politics, sex, religion, the occult, and spirituality.
Oh, really?
All the things people love to talk about at
In the
Thanksgiving
early
and Christmas.
2000s?
Mid-2000s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I learned very quickly that you really can't say everything you want to say. I was always getting into trouble.
Oh, really?
Always.
Now, this was in L.A.?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. And I just kept getting in trouble with the station owner, and I was...
Well, like, for what reason?
Oh, I was talking a lot about trafficking, sex
Okay,
trafficking,
okay.
and I was trying to expose things that I was seeing, and I'm a heretic investigator in human design, so I'm naturally I'm just heretical by nature, and I just thought everybody would want to know, like, let's work on these things, like trafficking, let's talk about this, and it just wasn't going to be accepted the way that, so I left and took my station or my show underground, if you will. I took it overground, went underground. And...
What were you doing on ham radio?
Internet. I was on the first
Oh,
station in the country that kept Don Imus on during he had a controversy, and it was the show.
I remember that.
So it was the first radio station in the country that you could see your broadcasters on the internet. So I was really into internet broadcasting. I was back when Mogulus, I think Twitch now bought Mogulus. And so I just started my own. I just went out there, and I enjoyed it, but I knew I was done in Santa Monica. And so I was on my friend's rooftop. I looked up at the stars, and I said, okay, where am I going next? Because I know I'm done here. And as clear as anything I've ever heard, I heard you're going to Sedona.
Really?
And within 3 months, I was here. And that unfolded in a whole amazing synchronistic way. I started with some friends, a whole network of liberty-oriented broadcasters. And being in Sedona, and I'm not a mountain biker, wasn't really a hiker, but I grew up, I had a horse. I thought, maybe I'll just go shovel some poop somewhere and get back to being around horses. And answered an ad, but that wasn't going to work out because it was all the way, it wouldn't even pay for my gas, and it was twice a day. So I said, hey, could you please give those horses a kiss from me? And she said, I think that you're supposed to see this video. And she sent me a video of my horse Paladin, who was born on 444, and that was kind of my sign that, okay, I think I'm being called to kind of put this broadcasting stuff on the side and go full on into horses, because they're my whole life have been my passion.
Really?
Yeah, I was in a small town. I ran from myself, and I ran right back into myself in Sedona.
Wow.
And so True North is kind of my hashtag for both my businesses. And I thought, what would I do for free, or if money was no object? I'd hang out with my horse
Mhm.
and help humans move through sacral chakra trauma, which I believe on this planet, epigenetic trauma and sacral chakra trauma are coming from generational war.
Mhm.
One could even say the fall of man and woman with prostitution and that whole, although I know there's sacred prostitution, but that, has been hijacked as well. So hijacking of the emotional center
Right.
of humans. And I had a big draw for that. And now here I am, 12, 13 years later. And that's exactly what I'm doing. And I have 4 horses now. And
So you get the horses, and you incorporated them into your practitionership.
I do, yeah. Yeah, they demand authenticity. They speak in energy. And they know what you're thinking and feeling before you do. And so I also incorporate, I have a beamer mat for my horses and clients, which is an electromagnetic frequency mat. Tuning forks, essential oils, oracle cards, human design, astrology. So I design the session with my client. And then it's very gestalt in the way that there's no rhyme or reason. It's just the container for it to unfold and whatever comes up. So somatic really is a way of simply explaining it. Somatic healing therapy. Because a lot of times my clients that come to me, if you ask them how are you feeling, they really most times can't tell me what I'm okay, or they don't know. So by making room, by clearing out somatically what's held in the cells, doesn't really require talk therapy.
Right.
It just releases, and then we can make room for the understanding of what's happening in the body. Because the trauma responses, I had CPTSD. I guess I still have times when I have stuff come up with CPTSD, but I didn't know what a flashback was. Now I have an understanding of that. Now I have the tools that when I feel something come on, I can very quickly move through it, because as a child, I wasn't taught emotional regulation. And I think that really is the key, is really helping my clients to understand even what emotional regulation is.
Let's go back to the beamer mat for a
Okay.
second. What is that, like a map of the meridians and the different lines, grid lines or whatever in the body?
Well, with Beamer, it is a Tesla patented frequency. It's a mat in Germany, is where it comes from, and it detoxes every cell in the body and brings you back down to Earth's frequencies.
Is it like a machine, a scalar wave?
No, you just lay on it, and then I have one for the horses too.
Oh, you lay on the beamer mat.
Yeah.
Oh, mat.
Yeah, mat.
Beamer mat.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. You probably thought, what the hell's he asking?
So yeah, you just lay on it. It's 8 minutes in the morning, 8 minutes at night, and then I have one for the horses as well, because they're part of my team, and they deserve to have that as well. It's pretty fascinating. And actually, I found out about the Beamer mat because I was studying it through horses, and they'll start releasing and licking and chewing, and it just
You can
clears.
see it.
Oh yeah, and I'm also certified in a unwinding and balancing technique, and you can just run your finger along the meridians and they'll start unwinding, and they're so sensitive. For as big and majestic and strong as they are so in tune and so sensitive. It's well, I'm a little biased, but I think they're the best somatic healing experience that's out there, because they are so in tune with us. If you think about it, civilization was built on their back, and they've stuck around now to be these amazing healers for us goofballs and all of our foibles and all the silliness that we've gotten ourselves into.
Are you familiar with Awakening Code Radio in Laguna? Michelle Anderson and Eric Rankin?
No.
No, I just wondered, because they've been in, I think, probably started after you got out of there.
Yeah.
I know it's been over 10 years.
Yeah, I left in 2000. I moved here in 2009.
So you came here before all the development.
Yeah, I mean, my first time, definitely, that was back in 98. I came here for the year anniversary of my mother's passing. And that was really when I started to acknowledge what had happened through her death. And I started, and no coincidence that I would be drawn to Sedona.
Right.
And then shortly after I would move to LA or Santa Monica. But back then really it was only Hillside that was anything was going.
Hillside. Oh, over at
Yeah.
179?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine. I've talked to people, and they said there was like one light,
Mm-hmm.
and there was nothing out here.
No.
And now it's crazy.
Now it's changed, and even in the years I've been here, it certainly has changed. I'm really tucked away out in, the village, and so I don't. I feel like I'm not really a part of. I know I live here, but I'm not really ever out and about in that.
Well, I notice, because I most nights, often enough, because I've stayed in VOC quite a few times at my friend's place, and then I was staying in Camp Verde a few nights. But I notice every time I leave, like last night's a perfect example. I left to go to my friend's house, take a shower, wash clothes, and eat. And but as I left Sedona, it feels like once I make that turn and I'm headed south, I can feel like energy leaving me. And sometimes it's kind of correlated to whatever's going on. So when I got to my friend's place, I started to feel sick. And I kind of had that nauseous feeling for the time I was there. And then when I headed back, it all kind of fell into place, and I felt better. And sometimes it happens the opposite way.
Yeah.
I'll be overflowing with energy here or external energies, and then doing my work or whatever, and then when I leave, you can just feel like a lightness, I guess. And I've had a lot of transmissions between Sedona and VOC.
Yeah.
Like a lot.
Yeah, I well, I live right. I mean, Lee Mountain is my backyard, and Sedona's on a bed of crystal quartz, 50 mile. It enhances so much when people talk about the energetics of Sedona, or if you're it can do the opposite. So in my sessions, I only work with clear crystal quartz because there's science behind the clear crystal quartz. And so when my guests ask me or my clients ask me about the vortexes and such, I always say, you're a vortex. It's such an individual thing. I don't buy into the commercialized part of what's going on here. I just don't. And but I do believe in clear crystal quartz. And that's why I do use them in my sessions. And I always gift my clients or my guests a little clear crystal quartz. A lot of times I'm working with people that they're just at the beginning of this adventure of really going inside, and that richness that comes from going inside. And for me, it's really setting a foundation for people, and knowing, for me, it's just really about the elementals and going right to source. I'm not a big using other entities or that doesn't.
So your connection is to the earth, to the crystals in the earth, and otherwise, and elementals. You're not really into the galactic and angelic.
I've had those experiences, and I think that for a long time I just kind of shut that down. Sometimes it can be so overwhelming to the system. I have enough going on that I wasn't really interested in opening up that communication. I think that's changed a little bit with right now with the way that things have advanced. I'm a little more open to what's coming in, but I'm very discerning in what I allow into my energy field, because I think that it can be cause delusion. I think that it can cause a lot of, unless you've really, in my opinion, dealt with your traumas or epigenetic traumas that are coming in, I think that opening up too many gateways can be very dangerous and cause delusion. And even with signs and numbers and that sort of stuff, I think it's very important to be discerning. I think it's, I hear a lot of people, we talk about dimensions and this sort of thing. I think that I'm a big Franz Barden fan, who was hermeticist, and basically until you can stick your hand in fire and not burn, you're still 3D. So there's a balance, I think, that has to be attained when you're talking about dimensions and traveling and being very careful about what you let into your energy field, because I think there's a lot of trickster energy out there.
Yeah.
And
Or it could be called shaman energy. I mean, it all has the same purpose, I guess, ultimately, in the soul's travel.
yeah, and the plant medicines have become very popular and this sort of thing, and I often think that when you're searching, I think there's a vulnerability about that, and that just to really know who you're around, know if they've really are knowledgeable in what they're doing. And
Now, you're talking about people or energies, non-physical energies?
well, I think that they go together
Both,
when you're
both.
talking about
That's true, that's true.
the plant medicines and stuff, and opening up the psyche and the astral world. I think that it's in my years of exploring these things, I've found that the more discerning and grounded I am, and the more that I also found that the work that I was doing with my horses and with clients, I was also working with me.
Right, of course.
So it's a mutually beneficial relationship that I have with my clients and horses. And so I found that it's just very important. For me, it was very important that the grounding and that, the elementals and directly to source was really all I wanted to incorporate into my.
Well, and the
my work.
elementals that's a pretty big neighborhood too.
Sure.
Especially if you're in Sedona.
Sure.
I was just curious because, and by the way, I agree with you. I ask questions of every single voice I hear, so to speak. I have conversations with every one of them. And I think that's really like the characteristic of, I don't know, what we call God, or is free will. Having that sovereignty.
Sovereignty is a big.
And exercising your free will is I don't know of anything that's more exemplary of.
And for me, that's really how True North came about. Was I believe we all have a True North mission, divine purpose, and that to know thyself is the greatest gift you can give yourself. And so the tools I work with are just that, they're tools. And I've had to put them down at times because they can become dogmatic, and I'm not a dogmatic person, but my South Node's in Virgo, so I've got some of that perfectionist thing going on, and perfectionism is a dream killer. So I have to really, really look at myself constantly, and every day I connect with my true north and I weed my garden. And that's I'm headed to that North Node Pisces, which is what I'm here to do. My divine mission. I'm living my divine mission.
Wow.
And that's what I really help people find, is their own divine mission. My biggest one is divine timing. I'm also a Leo and Sag rising, and I go. I'm a generator as well in human design. So I lack patience. I want it done now, and I can't, come on, God, let's get this going. That's the one I have to constantly work with is the divine timing.
Yeah, I'd like to hear more about the horses. I think a couple of people made comments too, but I just wanted to ask you real quick, because you have had connections or interactions with that beyond the elemental.
Yeah.
And because of where you live,
Yeah.
in general, the greater Sedona area, but specifically in VOC, specifically in that area, because I've had quite a few experiences there, including coming out of Butterfly Burger and crossing the street at 9 o'clock at night, and basically about where Whole Food is, maybe 5-6 stories high, a UFO just perched there.
Yeah.
And had a whole conversation. But I was curious, if you know, when you had the galactic overtures, were they specific star family species or planetary?
Yeah, a lot of Palladian.
Pleiadian, okay. That makes sense to me.
Yeah. And I've seen it's unidentifiable. I don't know what it is. I've had a lot of really undescribable energetic experiences. I hosted a drum circle one time when I was living out in Pine Valley, same area. And I had energy like that. I just literally moved my arm, both arms, and it was happening in the same place in my house. I was out with the horses one time, and the best way that I can describe it is on Star Trek when they like go to another place and they kind of
teleport,
whatever that's called. Yeah, I felt like that happened, but I could still see my body, and I looked up to Paladin, and I was like, did we just transport? Like I felt like everything in me, everything realigned, and that was a pretty amazing experience. This is when it comes to the galactic. I have a policy in my life, as above, so below, no initiation of force or fraud. So if you come to initiate force or fraud against me, I have every right to protect myself. So I'll leave that as above, so below.
Right on. And when you talk about elementals, because I think my first go-to is going to be, it's going to be the earth, nature beings, elementals, and animals. Do you consider, are the animals part of the elemental from your perspective?
I guess I would probably put them in there's the salamanders, the sylph, the undine, and the gnome. Those are the elementals, and then spirit above. And the fae, they have their own special place. So I would say that they're their own elemental, their own, their own kind of thing going on. Yeah. They don't have opposable thumbs, obviously, so there's, they're out there with the elementals in some regard in that way.
And I know some other people that live in that area, and the elemental relationship is pretty strong. I stayed at a friend of mine's over there. I was telling you about the one that lives in Jack's Canyon. And I was there 2 weeks. I saw fairies about 4 times. And he sees them every day.
Oh, yeah.
And even films them. Do you have, with that type of elemental, the nymphs and the fays and so on, are you pretty frequent?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah? What's that like? Do you see them?
Yeah, oh, yeah. That came from in the very beginning of my work with Hermetics. And Franz Barden, I think, is the ultimate in that regard. Now,
I remember when I first, I want you to continue back, but you've mentioned this word several times, and if I just want to get a little bit more explanation about it. But I remember when I reawoke in 2011, in the first couple of weeks, I was taken to Hermetic principles, some geomantic stuff that went with it, and so on. What is, when you say Hermetic, what are you speaking of, just so people, that if they don't know, like me, will get a better idea?
It really is the balancing, and if you look at astrology, it's broken down to earth, wind, fire, and water, even the tarot. So it's really, we're all earth, wind, fire, water, spirit above. And it is the balancing of those principles.
Okay.
And that's individual for everybody. We all have a different chart, but we all have all of it in our charts. So some of it is just in the forefront. So it's just a balancing act, I believe, to find and to know thyself. And the elementals are earth, wind, fire, the protectors of the quarters and the elements. So the elementals.
In your relationship with the elementals, because I know it's been an ongoing one, do they give you collective intel, or is it more specific for your work and your clients and your own life?
I think that's changed as my relationship has grown. In the beginning, when I first started working with the elementals, I was, just working with my own circle. And the gnomes, I might leave a little quarter, in even the fae. And then I stopped working with the fae. They're little tricksters, those ones. I had to kind of put those away for a while. I was having keys hidden and all sorts of silly stuff with them.
Are they the ones that do that?
Oh, they're silly. They're tricksters.
I have a problem with keeping glasses. I wear reading glasses, and this happened to me last night, and it had happened to me twice in the last week before that. One was with keys.
Yeah.
One was with glasses.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's But last night, I have backup glasses. You know how you have in the car on the ceiling that little container where you can put your glasses.
Yeah.
I guess it's really for sunglasses. I put the last pair of reading glasses, my go-to if I
Yeah.
and I had these glasses that I had done real good with for 4, 5, 6 weeks, and they just disappeared right off this table.
Mm-hmm.
And so 3 or 4 days go by, and I had 2 left. I had the backup pair, and I had this pair in here, and I don't know what happened to them. So I'm looking through the part. And so last night I left this pair in here. I went out to the car, and I wanted to read something on the phone.
Yeah.
And I pulled down.
And there they were.
Well, I pulled down the backup pair.
Yeah.
And I pulled it out.
Mm-hmm.
And, put them on, did what I had to do. Then I went to pull it down again, and they fell out.
Yeah.
But they weren't even in the thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the hell was that?
Yeah. And that can be at times a little crazy making.
Mm-hmm.
I had to simmer down a little bit because there were times when, man, I had my planner, and all day long I was, at this time working with fire, this time working with water. And I actually recently was in Egypt, and I think that I was very drawn to the Egyptian smell, and in human design, my superpower is smell. And so I was very drawn to changing the incense that I burned every hour. I was really deeply in my studies, and it found me. I didn't go looking for any of this. Even Franz Barden's book came out on the shelf is the best way that I can describe it. And when you talk about how did I start communicating or dealing with the elementals, really starting to relax the vision. And I was looking in a mirror, and so I started doing astral travel in the mirror, and I would have my
eyes open.
Yeah, but it's a very relaxed state, so it's very, very relaxed. So it comes in through the third eye, and I would see all the elementals. I really started honing in on working with that. And mind you, I'm 53 now, so mind you, this is back when I was in my early 30s. And I couldn't tell anybody because I was like, I think I'm going nuts. I'm seeing these things. I'm being, catapulted into history and time, and everything is one, but it's past, present, future. It was a lot to take in, and but it was really about, at the end of the day, learning to balance earth, wind, fire within myself, and spirit above within myself.
I'm just curious too, because I used to live, when I first started really doing the videos and stuff, in the original studio in Houston, there was a floor to ceiling mirror on one wall, and I spent some time with that because I would be facing it as I was broadcasting and working, and like one night I did, I guess, what you were talking about. I didn't consciously try to do it. I just knew that I had to basically look into myself, and this elemental ogre appeared and challenged me. It was pretty fun. But the reason I was bringing that up is because of what you were saying. Like, how did you know to start working with the mirror, and would you recommend it to people?
Oh, great question. I had a book that was Practical Solitary Magic, and I recommend, really knowing the fundamentals if you're going to explore this. And I would even say that if you're dealing with trauma, don't explore it until you've dealt with traumas, because it can be crazy making. And I learned that from experience, because there have been times where I'm like, okay, I have to stop this. this is not in my best interest to continue this right now.
And was that because you had trauma that surfaced, or you looped around at a higher level to deal with it?
Yeah, I don't think that I would have been able to articulate that it was trauma until now.
Okay.
But
Gotcha.
yes, I think that's exactly what was happening. Is I needed to, like I said, I've had periods of time where I've put this stuff down because I had to. I'm here. I have to function.
Yeah.
And
So innately you knew.
yeah, that I had
Too
to.
much. It's almost like being out of your body.
Yeah.
And not being embodied.
And some might even say a psychotic break.
Well, I mean, most of us have been in the psych ward or incarcerated or both, so there's no problem with that here.
And I think that's why I'm so passionate about the work I do, is because I really want to help take the stigma away from dealing with mental health issues and what trauma actually does to the body and what it's done to, really, we live on a traumatized planet. And I have a podcast called the True North Podcast, and getting ready to start season 2, and I'm scheduling interviews right now, and people that have stayed with me have now gone on to write books about their going through bipolar, going through borderline personality. And for me, it all comes down to trauma.
Yeah.
So I don't really like to put things into categories. I know that the DSM, it's there. It kind of helps put a name to certain things, but really I think all the cluster Bs, all of them it all goes back down to complex post-traumatic stress, which for me started early.
Do you think that that's that which we carry is what we end up dealing with is primarily in this incarnation, or does some of that post-traumatic, is it in our DNA as we come into
I think it's both. I think epigenetic trauma, if you look at human design, on the left-hand side, those numbers are 13 generations, 88 days before we're born. And I think that's what was coming up for me when I was astroplaning or astral projecting in a mirror, was really lives and energies, and not just energies, but archetypes.
Right.
And our subconscious speaks in signs, symbols, and archetypes. And so that's a lot when you open up these dimensions, for lack of a better word, this inside, almost like my inner world was playing on the outside. And it was like, wait a minute, like this is a very strange experience. And I didn't have anybody to go talk to. And I'm also not a joiner of things. I'm not a joiner of groups. I'm a heretic investigator in human design. So I'm very independent, and I also I like practical tools and solutions. So for me, it's all about practicality, and I find that a lot of the stuff that's out there for me hasn't been practical. It hasn't been practical to it became dogmatic at times in my life, and that's not practical for me. I'm not a dogmatic person.
And when you say that you would advise people not to go play too deeply in that type of stuff, third eye, astral.
Yeah.
If they have not dealt with their trauma, but at the same time, like in your own case, and like I'm sure we can all relate to, when something's present, we don't always know it is. But I guess what I'm saying is there a point or a level where you've cleared enough trauma that there's some type of characteristic or
Sure.
whatever dynamic that you can recognize and go, okay, you can go forward now.
Sure. I think that emotional regulation. Something can come at you and you stay emotionally regulated.
Something comes at you and you don't come off your square.
Yeah. Then I think and these tools can help you explore trauma. Just, I think that it can be very, very crazy making, because you're drawn to go deeper. It's like an answer's right there, and you want it, but the rabbit hole is no place to live. So rabbits don't even live in rabbit holes all the time, and so it can become its own kind of addiction, because we're searching. And I think that's, at least for me, that's why I'm not a joiner of things, and I don't think anybody has the answer for me. Perhaps tools. I consider myself a trail guide. I'm not my horses are more the healers than I am. I just have tools that I've used that I share. And I've studied this. That's the investigator part of me. When I'm interested in something, I will learn everything about it because I'm naturally an investigative person. But then I share along the road with people that my clients that are starting to kind of feel like something's happening, and maybe you should just slow down a little bit. Maybe just put it aside for a minute, because you can find yourself, at least I did, and that's I can only speak from my own experience, that it felt like I was almost in a gerbil wheel and not really making any progress. It's like if you ask your tarot cards 3 times and you keep like, don't ask anymore, because and I'm guilty of this. I found myself, all day long.
Well, it's a lot more fun than being human.
Well, there is.
It's a lot less.
There is that aspect
There's that
of it.
little. Oh wow, this world. But yeah, you mentioned that. I think. So what you're saying is that when you say that your, for lack of a better word, your routine becomes dogmatic, what you're saying is it's becoming more of the controller, the hamster in the wheel. So you're doing it without even you're losing presence with yourself.
Yeah, and I think that then it can become delusional. And I think that everybody has their own archetypical story and their own makeup, and so when I'm just very careful to not be caught up in somebody else's, I always say kind of somebody else's acid trip, because people want to share all these things that they've been experiencing, all these it's amazing, right? As above, so below, but up here it's not a physical, it's
Right.
seeing these pictures and in your mind, and it's a different way of experiencing the story. It's the above, not the below.
Right.
And I think that to really navigate that, you enjoy your 3D, and if you're not enjoying your 3D and just want to be gone, I would argue that there's perhaps some trauma that needs to be healed so that you can enjoy 3D and experience as above, so below in a very beautiful way, as opposed to wanting to get out of one place to go to another.
Well, it sounds like your priority is to be present with the human aspect.
Yes.
And none of us have a perfectly,
Nobody.
straight plane that we travel, and you just kind of have it built into you now, where you just recognize that, hey, I gotta step away from this for a bit.
Yeah, and horses are, they demand my presence. They demand me to be in the now moment. I have 2 young ones and 2 older ones, but they're between 900 and 1,300 pounds. And they demand my leadership, my authenticity. And they'll know if I'm not being authentic. And by being authentic, if I'm having a bad day, they demand that I'm honest about that. And they just know. They know what I'm thinking before.
How do you get that communication? Is it a feeling? Is
Yeah.
do they show you images?
They do, yeah.
Do they speak words in your
A
third
very
eye?
telepathic relationship. Same thing with my dogs and horses. I'm certified, and I can do in one and the other. So there's there's a energetic similarity between dogs and horses. Or if I'm crying, my little dog Petunia will come up and lick my tears. She knows. They're just so in tune. And with my horses, especially this time of year, if it's windy, it's cooler, they're wanting to run around and play. They know what my space is, and you don't come into that, because they've got good aim. And if they're accidentally being all willy-nilly kicking and bucking and farting, they can kill me.
Wow.
And so, not on purpose, although some horses, horses, you should always be aware of that you're with a very large animal.
Yeah.
And so when I have people working with them, it's very, I explain these things to them, the language of the horse, how they talk to each other, with their ears back, they're talking to each other. Or when they come up and put their nose to my nose and we breathe together. That's how horses greet each other. That's how they remember each other.
Really?
So horses will remember you. When I've worked with autistic children, I've had autistic children that have spoke their first word around the horses. I have had pregnant women, and they're just starting to show, and my horses will go up and put their nose right on their belly. I had one woman who explained to me that in her experience with the horse, that one came up and put it right on a spot in her body. She found out later that that's where she had cancer.
Wow.
I have one little boy that when they're in town comes and sees me, and he was oxygen deprived at birth, at Earth. And he doesn't have much movement or much, he's on a trach. He has to have his suctioned every few minutes. Like he's, 24-hour care with a nurse. And the mom booked a session because you can paint on Paladin. So we do some art therapy there. And for the first time, she'd felt his little arm move.
Wow. Because
he actually was participating. And that one just always, gets me, because for her, those moments are everything. And I've just seen miracles as far as I'm concerned. I had one gentleman who was coming out of a suicide attempt and went out to the horses, and he hadn't said anything. And he was just brushing Paladin, and he turned around and looked at me and said, "Can I have a hug?" And he just started crying. So that's a somatic release. And I've worked with all sorts of traumatic experiences with people that they're working through. And just being out with the horses, they'll just start crying. I work with a lot of boundary setting issues, codependency and people pleasing. Paladin's happy to come up right in your face and give you a kiss, and not everybody really wants a 1,300-pound animal coming up and giving them a lick. They don't know what's going on. So I always ask them to check in and, how does that feel? How does that feel? Are you comfortable right now? And when they say, well, I don't know. Well, let's check into that. Let's set a boundary with Paladin. I don't want to hurt his feelings. You're not going to hurt my horse's feelings. He's asking you to set a boundary with him. He's asking you, because he'll take advantage of the fact that you don't know. And that's in humans too. When we're out in the world, a lot of times we're saying yes to things that we don't want to say yes to because we don't want to hurt someone's feelings. And then we end up hurting ourselves. So boundaries are very, very important in life.
Well, that type of stuff's breaking down too, right? I mean, we've done a lot of work, and I guess you've probably, obviously you've had like a bird's eye view. You've had a steady stream of clients over the years.
Yes, I have.
Can you I know that your sessions are, customized. Mm-hmm. There's no set template, but
it's very gestalt.
Okay. So can you take us through like what it would be like if I went over there to your place and
had a session?
Yeah, and just said, what do you do? Can you just kind of walk us through?
Yeah. So I have my Airstream is my horse office, and right in front of it I have a couple fire pits and chairs, and we sit out there. And I turn on some nice music, and I put out a series of oracle cards, tuning forks, essential oils. And if you want, you can do the beamer session before or after we do that. The horses also love essential oils, so they'll start coming over to the fence while I'm doing this, and they'll start joining in. They'll start taking deep breaths. So then also maybe some breath work. So I give a buffet, and then what I really want is you to work with intuitively, what would you like to pick out of this buffet? What's resonating with you?
So they basically create that.
Yeah. And I also have them, I always ask them, how much magic do you want to take home with you? I haven't had anybody say none. It's all of it. I want to take as much as is here. So that's what we really build a container for, is that as much magic as you want to take home, that's what's going to happen here. And then, I have them, do you work with a specific number? I ask people. Sometimes the answer is yes, they have it, and sometimes no. And then let's say maybe that they have a 7. So I say, okay, well, if you pick 2 decks, pick 3 from this one and 4 from that one. And then I always have a horse medicine deck that I work with. Okay. But really what I'm wanting...
So the horses are part of You have the horse medicine deck to involve the horses.
Yeah, and the horses are generally coming up to on the fence. They're coming up to join this beginning stage of the, and sometimes it's one horse, sometimes it's all four horses, sometimes no horses.
Right.
And then I'm always paying attention to that.
Now, when you're getting into the session, are you hearing the horses? Are you communicating? Are they helping you? Is it like a team?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm watching everything. I'm watching, because the music will start playing, and then I'll do the tuning forks. I see the horses' ears pop up. I see them starting. They know this is the start of a session. I'm also setting the intention that nobody takes on anybody's energy. So the horses don't take on anybody's. I don't take on anybody's. The client doesn't take on. But together as a team, through sacred alchemy, we're making room.
Right.
And we're clearing at a cellular, and it's somatic experiencing. And so then we maybe start with the breath work. Some people want to pick the singing bowls. And so we start with that. And then I'll have them, after they've picked the cards, do you want to look at them now, or do you want to look at them when the session's done? So I really want them working with that right side of the brain and the intuitive side, because a lot of times with trauma, we don't trust ourselves. We don't even know what we're thinking to trust ourselves. So that's what we're releasing somatically, and we're making room for the clarity of how we feel and clarity of emotional regulation, regardless of what's coming at us. So emotional regulation is really, and horses, because they're a prey animal, they have a natural healthy fight flight. So that's why when you're around them, and they can hear your heartbeat from 4 to 5 feet away. So when they've come up to the fence, now your heartbeat's regulated with my herd. And they speak through their heart. They say horses have 5 hearts, 4 hoofs in their heart.
Wow.
And so they've got that grounding, right? They're on Mother Earth like that. They're just so incredible. So that's what I'm wanting them to really, and a lot of times people, they just start crying. And they won't, and it's a safe place to do that. Some people kind of start laughing, or you can see they're having a somatic experience, or even some people that have never been around a horse, but they really want to explore this medicine. Well, then we just take a step out, or maybe you're not ready to go out with the horses, but up on the fence, you can have this feeling of just being around 1,300 pounds of majestic energy that is there to work with you and really get into that somatic experience. So I'll ask people, how do you feel? I'm a little nervous. Okay, where in your body are you nervous? So we start really getting in touch with the body, and that's really what somatics is. And emotional regulation is, I feel like, just such a gift to everyone, because I think we all have trauma.
Yeah.
And it's a sliding scale.
Nobody's walking on water yet.
No.
So I know there's been a lot of talk about this year, and I know you've listened to some of the shows and we've talked about it. But as a practitioner, I would imagine, again, you get, because of the frequency and the collective aspect of everything that comprises that, right? All your course of work, like say for the last few months or even this year, are you seeing an uptick in anything such as new people coming in and going?
Yes.
And anything else you could add to
I'd
that?
say that that's a majority of what I'm seeing is people are finding me because they're starting this journey. And I love that, because as a trail guide to this experience with people, I really want to just provide a very solid, practical foundation. And that satisfies, in my human design, my 5-1, I find satisfaction in bringing practical tools and solutions. So when people are at this journey, and I can thank you for trusting me is the first thing. Like I activated my property with a 3-day sound bath that if you're supposed to find me, you will. And I've had so many stories of people saying that they knew they were coming to Sedona and they started having dreams of white horses. They started having, my horses are cremellos, which means cremello quarter horses. And then I have a thoroughbred, but they're cremello with blue eyes. So they look like unicorns. They're amazing.
Oh, they're white.
Yeah, yeah, and
Do you have? Well, unicorns are elementals.
yeah. Well, unicorns. One of my businesses is called Unicorn Way. YOU. Unicorn Way.
Have you had exchanges with unicorn?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I have. That's a big one for me, and I have horns for all the horses to do.
Do you really?
Yeah.
That's wild.
For photo shoots, but Unicorn Way is the philanthropic side of what I do. So all the proceeds from Unicorn Way go to help women coming out of sex trafficking and domestic violence, and we provide our services, my coaching and all that services for free, and then we have them come and actually stay here in Sedona, and they've through an outreach come off of sex trafficking and domestic violence. So that's something that I'm really, really drawn to. But yeah, I mean, Paladin was born on 444, and from the moment I saw him, I was like, that's my unicorn.
Oh my God.
So very drawn to that. I might have stopped answering a question that you
No,
were,
no.
okay.
I was just saying, are you seeing anything like a trend? You know, you're
Oh,
seeing,
yeah.
You're seeing more newbies, I guess you could say.
Yes,
coming
a
in
lot
the
of people
door.
feeling.
Are they scared?
No, I think they're excited, but they want a safe place to talk about things that perhaps they can't talk about with their families, and they're recognizing that they've had trauma. And I think maybe that's even what the last 2 years really has shown me, is that a lot of people really started rethinking, or had time even to think about what they actually were here for and what they wanted to do, and they don't want to waste another moment doing something that doesn't feel like a calling. And so for me, that's true north. Find your true north and your divine mission and divine purpose. And then I think we learn to live and love in divine timing.
Yeah. Such was the gift of COVID, right? Self-introspection and questioning, why am I doing this and why am I doing that? Not just to be regulated to the COVID things that happened with COVID, but
I think there's a lot that came up there too. I mean, people that are in their sovereignty saw, you know, I also have the genius to freak line in my human design, so I'm generally 15 years ahead of time with that line. And so for me, the things that were happening, I was talking about on my radio show 15 years ago, which is why I kept getting in trouble.
right.
And so I think that, you know, self-responsibility and sovereignty and claiming that. And yes, I know that this over here is part of existence, but I don't align with it. It insults my intelligence and my soul. So I'm over here aligned in building to the best of my ability what aligns with my soul and my intelligence. But I recognize that this world also over here exists. I just do everything that I don't align with it on a spiritual.
You know it's there, but you don't give it your power.
No, I do not. I stepped off the chessboard. I no longer, because the more that I found myself fighting, and this is from my activist days, I found that it was a blowback, and I wasn't finding much happiness in that. So now it's all about satisfaction, and I find great satisfaction in helping humans move through trauma. The rest of it, I'm aware that it's happening. I'm aware of it. I don't fight it.
Right.
To the best of my ability.
You don't fight it. You have a solution for those that might be coming out of it.
Yes.
And you don't fight it. You just facilitate rehabilitation and.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to say it. I help people move through the trauma from all that goofiness over there. And then conscious capitalism is something that I'm.
I call it 5D commerce. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah.
Yeah, the new. So
Yeah.
how do you approach that? I'm curious.
How do I approach that? I think that an equal and beneficial exchange of energy, ethics. You know, I provide a service, and I do to the best of my ability to live by an ethical code of, I don't initiate force or fraud.
So it's really the purity of intention, and then the equal energy exchange, which isn't just specific to money.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
That's how I follow it.
Yes, I definitely love a good barter and trade. I say if everything really falls all to the ground, I'll just have saddlebags on all my horses, and I'll have a little Pony Express going. So I don't live in fear that I won't be okay. I'll just be okay. I just, I've already gone through the mental gymnastics of losing everything and the fear that comes with a collapse, or the fear that comes with, I suppose, the understanding of the matrix and the chessboard. And
so this has been a fast and furious year of massive fluctuations, massive growth. So many things that parallel that have been amplified, expanded. Have you had any noticeable highs and lows? I guess have you had stuff coming up that you didn't know was there?
Sure. Yeah. For me, astrologically, we just got out of a pretty intense Scorpio. The nodes of the planet right now are in South Node Scorpio, North Node Taurus, and South Node Scorpio. And that's what our eclipses were in this last season. So for me, it started in the summer. I had to really go into that Scorpio energy. That's my part of fortune in my chart, and let go of obsessive worry about money. Scorpio is also death and rebirth. It's also, and I had a mare that she passed away from cancer, so I really had that death energy come in on many different, my dad passed away this year, but death with my mother opened me up, so I had, I have a different relationship with death, but it doesn't mean that I still don't have, the pains of losing, but knowing that they're still around, and that also meant with the system and what I'm seeing on the planet, there's a lot of times where it's very hard to wrap your brain around a lot of the things that are happening.
Yeah.
It's very difficult, and so to be easy on myself, but also recognize that this scorpionic energy is intense. And during the scorpionic energy, I actually had a scorpion in my pants. And
you had a scorpion in your pants.
I wear riding breeches, and I was out. I even went out and fed the horses, and that little sucker I got up and started walking. I probably had my pants on for about 40 minutes, and that little sucker was right below my butt cheek.
Did he bite you?
Yes. And I was like, okay, if this isn't something scorpion, tell him. And a lot of times the poison is the medicine. And so and it was a smaller one, but I thought because we have a lot of goat heads around here. And I thought that maybe.
What does that mean, goat heads?
Goat heads, they're like little landmines you step on. They're hard, and they've got little stickers out of them.
Oh, okay.
So we've got them everywhere. And so I thought, well, maybe I backed into a bunch of goat heads, because I felt it. I was like, so I literally started pulling down my pants. I'm on my porch, and I'm just like hopping around, and I can't get it out. And so it's still in my pants. Finally, I get it out. Oh, and it bit me. And, it was sore. It was like a bee sting, but it lasted long. It was more like a wasp sting. But I thought, okay, Scorpio is definitely coming in loud and clear for me. So yes, I had a few intense moments with the scorpionic energy, which, death and rebirth. I think that's definitely, and sacred alchemy, it's when two forces. So when we see all this polarized energy, it's when two forces come together like that. The alchemy is in that explosion between the two forces. So that's where the change is.
It's like the channel of the Taurus field. Like the Taurus.
Yeah.
That's the way I always look at it.
Yeah, and Taurus is where the north node of the planet is, and that's really destiny and the luxury of life. And what do you want that to look like for you? Going to, I have dreams so big they scare me every day.
Good.
And, and so that's where my Taurus, that north node is. I just always think, okay, yeah, this is going on, but sure, I'll take the effortless, swim to that, sure, let's put me on that lane. I'd like to not be over here in that one. So
Ease and grace.
yeah, the intention setting of ease and grace, sure. Yeah.
Well, before we get out of here, do you have anything coming up locally, or if you want, even if you want to just
Yeah.
let people know a little bit
Sure.
in general what you do
Sure.
offer if they happen to come here?
Yeah, anything that you might be interested in, Sedona Horse Medicine. I'm always revamping the site, so my information is on SedonaHorseMedicine.com and all the socials in Linktree, Sedona Horse Medicine, or Brighton 444. That's another one. And then season 2 of the True North podcast is starting, and really, it's going to be a combination of me interviewing people that have been on the hero's journey, and, a community of paladins, and then just me talking about like with the horses, wisdom from the herd. It'll be kind of a different things that or different types of shows, but one of them will be definitely interviews now that I have Starlink. And season 1 is kind of just me. I stuck with it because I feel like consistency is the key. And then I finally got so frustrated with my internet that I think in September I kind of stopped. So now that I have Starlink, I'm going to start up again.
Right on.
And that's pretty much how you can find me. And
beautiful.
Thanks for tuning in.
Well, I appreciate you coming in, yes.
Yeah.
And I think Hung might want to swing by there before we go.
Yeah, please come by.
Yeah, so we'll
I'm
talk
there.
about that.
Yeah.
She's back now.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks everybody.
you.
I will be back in 3 or 4 hours with Sasha Grace.
That music that you've been doing has been
Which one?
so fun.
What music? With Ty?
Yes.
I'm glad you like it. I'm glad. It seems to be. It has a lot of traction. Let's see, 10, 9. I'll be back at 8 p.m. So what's that? 5 hours? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all the interviews have been so interesting and stuff, but that music is
well, it's been a real learning experience, because to be kind of swimming in these waters, which for me, there's been a lot of verbalization. There's been music, but then hooking up with Ty, and you're welcome to walk into his in the back there. He's got 9 gongs, and he's
is this? Oh, I loved that setup.
Yeah,
is this
that's
where
where
that
it is.
is?
That's
Okay.
the big studio. Yeah. But yeah, the whole improv, because I say with the show, we're not going to rehearse anything. I mean, you and I talked probably more than probably everyone, but maybe 2 or 3 shows out of 4,000 before the show started.
Oh.
But it's spontaneous, intuitive, creative,
like
imaginative, and courageous. And
like that.
so there's something about just jumping in there that's powerful in terms of, the resonance of, let's just say, a band of frequencies that's presented with sound involved, maybe color, maybe horses or whatever.
Yeah.
That has like an automatic recalibration kind of thing to it,
Yeah.
So I'm glad you like it, and I appreciate
Appreciate
you. Because it was very scary at first.
Isn't that where the magic happens, outside of the comfort zone?
But now we're getting more comfortable with it.
I loved it. It's been great. Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, we'll see y'all in about 5 hours, and we may see Kimberly again tomorrow.
Have a fabulous day.
Take care.